Steven Spielberg has always believed that the best visual effects are the ones audiences don't even notice. That's exactly why his science fiction movie, War of the Worlds, still looks so convincing nearly 2 decades after its release. Instead of relying entirely on computer graphics, Spielberg combined full-scale practical sets, real aircraft wreckage, miniature models, mechanical props, and cutting-edge CGI to create one of the most realistic alien invasions ever put on film. Today, we're taking a closer look behind the scenes to discover how this unforgettable blockbuster was made. One of the film's most spectacular sequences takes place when Ray, Rachel, and Robbie attempt to escape by crossing the river aboard a crowded ferry. Just as it seems they've found a way to safety, a gigantic tripod suddenly rises from beneath the water, sending the ferry into complete chaos before flipping the entire vessel upside down. On screen, the sequence unfolds like one continuous disaster, but in reality, it was created using an impressive combination of miniature models, practical filmmaking, and state-of-the-art visual effects. The ferry scene overturning in the movie wasn't a full-size ship at all. To create the sequence, legendary ILM model maker Steve Gawley and his team built an incredibly detailed 1/8 scale miniature ferry, measuring approximately 21 feet long and 5 feet wide. Every tiny detail was recreated, from the railings and passenger decks to the parked vehicles, making the model convincing enough to withstand close-up photography. Interestingly, the miniature was never actually capsized in real water. Instead, it was mounted onto a massive rotating rig capable of slowly turning the ferry nearly 180 degrees. By carefully controlling the movement and filming it from precisely chosen camera angles, the filmmakers created the illusion of a full-size ferry rolling over in the middle of the river. The footage was later blended seamlessly with live-action shots and digitally generated water, making the transition almost impossible to notice. Ironically, the big's visual effects challenge wasn't creating the towering tripod itself, it was making the water behave realistically. When a machine of that enormous size emerges from beneath the surface, it would naturally displace thousands of tons of water, producing gigantic waves, crashing spray, and thick foam. To create this effect, Industrial Light and Magic relied on advanced fluid simulation technology that physically calculated the movement of every splash and wave. Rather than animating the water by hand, the simulations allowed it to react naturally to the immense weight of the alien machine, giving the sequence its incredible sense of realism. After the ferry overturns, Ray and Rachel are thrown into the water and desperately struggle to survive. Although the sequence feels as though it was filmed in the middle of a raging river, none of these scenes were actually shot on location. Instead, the production moved into a massive studio water tank specifically designed for underwater filming. Before shooting began, Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning underwent extensive safety rehearsals with professional divers to prepare for the demanding underwater scenes. Throughout filming, a dedicated underwater safety team remained only a few feet away from the actors, ensuring every sequence could be performed safely while still looking completely authentic on screen. The basement sequence during the second half of War of the Worlds is one of the most suspenseful moments in the entire film. Surprisingly, it also became one of the most technically challenging sequences for the production team. Spielberg wanted audiences to feel as though they were trapped underground, alongside Ray and Rachel, constantly fearing that they could be discovered at any second. To achieve that level of tension, he chose not to rely entirely on CGI. Instead, the production team constructed a massive full-scale basement set inside a soundstage. Every wall was designed to be removable, allowing Spielberg and cinematographer Janusz Kaminski to move the camera freely through the confined space without limitations. The broken wooden beams, damaged furniture, cracked walls, scattered debris, and layers of dirt were all physically built into the set. Because the actors were surrounded by a completely real environment, Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, and Tim Robbins were able to deliver far more natural and convincing performances. One of the most unforgettable moments in the basement occurs when the snake-like probe machine enters through the broken walls and begins searching every corner for surviving humans. Watching the finished film, most people assumed the probe was created entirely with CGI. In reality, the filmmakers combined practical effects with digital animation to achieve its frightening realism. For many of the close-up shots, the production team built a full-size probe head that could be physically operated on set. Crew members manually moved the mechanical prop wherever Spielberg needed it, allowing the actors to react to a real object rather than empty space. And later, ILM turned this dummy head into a full-size probe machine through CGI. This combination of practical interaction and CGI enhancements is one of the main reasons the probe still feels so convincing nearly 2 decades later. Perhaps the most surprising behind-the-scenes fact about the basement sequence is that Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning weren't actually looking at a real alien during filming. There was no actor wearing a creature suit, no animatronic puppet, and no fully articulated practical monster standing in front of them. Instead, the filmmakers placed a life-size static maquette made from foam and styrofoam on the set. Its only purpose was to give the actors a precise reference for the alien's height, position, and eyeline. Once filming was complete, Industrial Light and Magic replaced the dummy with a fully animated digital alien. Because the actors had a physical reference to perform against, their reactions and eye movements matched perfectly with the finished visual effects. The towering three-legged tripod machines seen throughout War of the Worlds weren't designed at random. Spielberg and production designer Rick Carter wanted these colossal machines to feel like ancient, highly advanced alien technology, rather than oversized robots. Long before visual effects production even began, the design team created hundreds of concept sketches, engineering drawings, and detailed blueprints to define every aspect of the tripods. Their overall height, the movement of each leg, the rotation of the head, and even the direction of their weapons were carefully planned. These blueprints didn't just guide the artists, they also became an essential reference for the cinematographers, stunt coordinators, and visual effects teams, allowing every department to know exactly where the invisible machines would stand and how they would move during filming. Once the final design was approved, Industrial Light and Magic transformed those blueprints into a fully detailed three-dimensional digital model. But this wasn't simply an exterior shell. The artists imagined the entire internal mechanical structure, building a complex digital framework beneath the machine's surface. Every joint was individually rigged so that each of the tripod's three legs could move independently. Using advanced computer simulations, the animation team studied how such a massive machine would realistically shift its weight, lift its legs, and transfer force into the ground with every step. That's why each movement carries an incredible sense of scale and mechanical weight, making the tripods feel like enormous machines that truly exist, rather than computer-generated creations. Throughout the film, the aliens aren't simply invading Earth, they're slowly transforming it into an environment suitable for their own survival. As the tripods harvest human blood, they use it to spread a mysterious alien vegetation known as the red weed. Rather than serving as simple background scenery, the red weed represents the aliens' true mission, terraforming the planet and replacing Earth's ecosystem with one of their own. Spielberg borrowed this idea direct from H.G. Wells' original 1898 novel, where the invading Martians also introduce a strange red plant that begins spreading across the Earth. For the film adaptation, however, Spielberg and his creative team expanded the concept into something even more disturbing, presenting the red weed as a living alien organism that grows using human biological material. Although the red weed appears to spread across entire landscapes, Spielberg once again preferred to use practical filmmaking whenever possible. For many of the close-up and interaction shots, the artists at Stan Winston's studio, working alongside the film's art department, create large practical alien vines using flexible foam, rubber, latex, silicone, and carefully painted plastic materials. These physical props allow the actors to touch, walk through, and interact with the alien vegetation naturally, giving every scene a much greater sense of realism. To complete the illusion, Industrial Light and Magic digitally extended the practical vines far beyond the physical sets, making it appear as though the red weed had completely overtaken entire neighborhoods and forests. By blending practical props with seamless CGI extensions, the filmmakers created an alien ecosystem that felt disturbingly real. According to the film's production diaries, Spielberg consistently preferred building practical environments whenever possible, believing that real sets would naturally help both the actors' performances and the audience's immersion. That combination of practical craftsmanship and digital artistry is one of the reasons the red weed remains one of the film's most haunting and memorable visual elements. After surviving the devastating tripod attack, Ray spends the night at Mary Ann's house with two children, hoping they have finally found a moment of safety. During the night, however, a passenger airliner crashes into the neighborhood, but the real shock comes from the following morning. As Ray steps outside, he finds himself standing in a world that had been perfectly normal only hours earlier. Now the streets are covered with burned-out vehicles, collapsed buildings, twisted debris, and thick layers of ash drifting through the air. Rather than simply showcasing destruction, Spielberg used this sequence to demonstrate that the alien invasion hadn't just attacked humanity, it had completely shattered civilization itself. To create this haunting environment, the filmmakers relied on far more than green screens. The production designers physically transformed an entire suburban neighborhood into a disaster zone. Thousands of pieces of debris were scattered across the streets, dozens of burned vehicles were carefully positioned by hand, utility poles were damaged, tree branches were broken and spread across the roads, and nearly every surface was coated with layers of soot and ash. As Tom Cruise walks through the neighborhood, much of what surrounds him is a real practical set rather than computer-generated imagery. Because the destruction physically existed around the actors, their reactions feel completely natural, adding another layer of realism to the sequence. Perhaps the most impressive practical effect in this sequence is the enormous airplane crash site, located just outside Mary's home. Watching the film, many viewers assume the wreckage was created entirely with CGI, but the reality is far more remarkable. Instead of building the crash digitally, the production team acquired sections of a retired Boeing 747, including genuine fuselage panels, engines, and other aircraft components. These massive pieces were transported to the filming location and carefully arranged throughout the neighborhood to create the appearance of a catastrophic high-speed crash. The wreckage was positioned so naturally that it genuinely looked as though a fully loaded passenger jet had torn through the surrounding homes only hours before. As Ray carefully walks between the burning engines and shattered sections of the fuselage, most of the wreckage visible around him is completely real. While visual effects were later used to enhance the destruction and extend the environment, the practical aircraft pieces gave both the actors and the audience something tangible to experience. That commitment to building real environments is one of the biggest reasons the airplane crash remains one of the film's most unforgettable disaster sequences. One of the most unforgettable moments in War of the Worlds comes when the first giant tripod suddenly erupts from beneath the streets, transforming an ordinary neighborhood into a living nightmare within seconds. As the towering machine rises from underground, panic spreads through the city, with thousands of people desperately running in every direction as buildings collapse and destruction unfolds all around them. Although the sequence feels completely chaotic, every second of it was meticulously planned long before the cameras ever started rolling. Because a sequence of this scale would have been almost impossible to coordinate on set without preparation, even during this already chaotic sequence, one particular stunt stands out as one of the film's most jaw-dropping moments. As panic erupts across the street, a car is suddenly launched through the air before crashing straight through the glass front of a clothing store. Watching the finished movie, it's easy to assume the shot was created entirely with CGI. However, the behind-the-scenes footage reveals a very different story. For this stunt, the special effects team constructed a powerful mechanical launch rig capable of propelling the vehicle along an exact trajectory. The car was securely mounted to the launcher before being fired at high speed toward the storefront. Every part of the stunt had to be carefully calculated, so the vehicle would travel through the air at precisely the right angle before crashing into the building. The store's front window wasn't ordinary glass either. The production used specially manufactured breakaway safety glass that shattered just like real glass while remaining much safer for the stunt crew. Once the practical stunt had been successfully captured, Industrial Light and Magic completed the illusion by replacing the green screen with digital environments, adding flying debris, dust clouds, destruction effects, and the towering tripod itself. By combining a real vehicle launch with carefully integrated visual effects, the filmmakers created a sequence that still feels incredibly believable nearly 2 decades later. Even today, it's remembered as one of the film's most impressive practical stunt moments and another perfect example of Spielberg's philosophy of blending real filmmaking with cutting-edge visual effects. If you enjoy discovering these behind-the-scenes secrets, be sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which movie you'd like to see covered next.